Hey everyone, and welcome to predictions for MCC 30. I know this is like a week late. I meant to do this last week, but life got in the way, so we're doing it today, and I have very little time to edit this as well, so that's gonna be great. Anyway, so we're gonna do things a little bit differently. Normally I do this through Twitter, but after watching the past two videos that I did and seeing all the glitchiness, we are moving to Google Slides. We're moving up in the world, guys. So hopefully that'll fix some of the glitchiness. I don't actually know. We're also going to start a little differently today. And as you can see in front of you guys, here are my predictions for the game rotation for MCC 30. So I'm hoping that these are mostly accurate. From the top to the bottom, it's most likely to be in to least likely to be in. But I think all 9 of those games are going to be in rotation. So starting off, we have survival games. It's a pretty obvious choice. It wasn't in MCC 29, it got skipped. Meltdown also was not in MCC 29, it was out of rotation. Hole in the Wall, also out of rotation. Parkour Warrior, also out of rotation in MCC 29. Then we have To Get to the Other Side, which was in MCC 29 but wasn't in MCC 28. Sky Battle, which wasn't in MCC 27. Yes, I know that was half canon, but Sky Battle also has the new map from MCC 29, so I don't think they're going to bench it yet. Rocket Spleef Rush is the first one that I think might not be in, but I think it'll be in more than I don't think it'll be in, if that makes any sense. Last time Rocket Spleef Rush was benched in a canon event was MCC 25, so a little while ago, but it's also been benched twice since MCC 25, first in MCC 27, which was half canon, and then last event in MCC Scuffed, which was non-canon. Then we have Sands of Time. There's got to be a team game, and Grid Runners is probably benched. I think the last time Grid Runners was benched was like MCC 22. I could be wrong on that. But either way, it's past time for Grid Runners to get benched. And unless Build Mart comes back or Bingo comes back, Sands of Time is in. And then we have Ace Race, which honestly, Ace Race is really only there because out of the other games, I think Ace Race is most likely to be in. We've only been on Yeti Set Go, I think, for 2 events, so it's probably got 1 more event in it. And the Noxcrew start working on a new map for Ace Race. So, yeah. Then in the bottom corner, I have some things in an asterisk. First one is Parkour Tag. Parkour Tag might be in, but if Parkour Tag is in, then Parkour Warrior isn't in, because we haven't seen those 2 games in the same event together, I don't think. And since Parkour Warrior was benched in MCC 29, I think Parkour Warrior has a higher chance than Parkour Tag to be in. We could see a new version of Build Mart. We know that Build Mart is probably not going to be in rotation until it gets a revamp, just because the Noxcrew know that it's one of the more least liked games and that it does need a little bit of work. We could also see a new PvP game. We know that for MCC Islands, they're developing a new game that hasn't been in the event, as far as I'm aware. We just don't know what that is. I'm assuming it'll make its way into MCC soon enough. So maybe we'll get a new PvP game, and then a game like either Meltdown or Survival Games will get benched. And then also, we could see the return of Bingo. It was in MCC Scuffed. I wouldn't be opposed to Bingo returning, but I would want it to be one of those games where it's not in every event. where it's in like every third event. That way it's still kind of fresh, because bingo does get very repetitive. So we would need it in little amounts. Now on to my team placement predictions. So remember, these are just my predictions. My predictions for MCC 29 were pretty accurate after the game announcements. Again, my MCC 30 predictions will change after we get the teams on Wednesday. And when they do, I will release a community post with my new predictions. I think I got like 4 out of the 10 teams correct last time, so hoping to do better this time. So in 10th place, much to my dismay, because I really like this team, is the Orange Ocelots, consisting of SB, Blushy, Snifferish, and H-Bomb. Under normal circumstances, this would be a very strong team, but compared to the other teams that are in this event, I'm not sure how well they're going to do. SB hasn't played in MCC since MCC 23, which I believe was in July, so it's been almost a year since SB has been in the event. MCC has gotten a lot more competitive in that time, and this is a really stacked roster, so I'm not really sure how well SB is going to do. Hoping he does well, but time will tell. In the other corner, we have H-Bomb, who has been on a pop-off arc recently, barring MCC 28, I think it was. But at the same time, MCC 28 Yellow wasn't the strongest team compared to the others. And H still tends to do pretty well on teams that aren't as strong as the other teams. So maybe we'll see the same thing here. We also have Blushy and Sniff, who help round out this team's weak points a little bit. Blushy's definitely going to help in the PvP department, and Snifferish is going to help in some of the more team-oriented games, as well as some of the PvP. Sniff is definitely underrated. Sniff is pretty good with a bow. A game that I think this team is going to be really good at is Sands of Time. That is probably going to be their main game. SB is really good at it. H-Bomb is the king of Sands of Time. Blushy's done pretty well, and Sniff has done pretty well. And this team, I would say, should probably still avoid PvP games as much as possible, especially Meltdown. Yes, Sniff is very good at Meltdown, but SB's only played it once, and it didn't really go well for him. But to conclude, 10th place, Orange Ocelots. In 9th place, the Pink Parrots, consisting of Amesy, Shadoon, Tubbo, and Sylvie. Again, under normal circumstances, this would be a pretty strong team. Not really sure how well Shadoon is going to do. I know he's a very good Minecraft player, but that's really the extent of my knowledge on Shadoon. For the Ultra Sheep Lord spreadsheet, I think I used Dream Stats for Shadoon. Might be a little bit better than Shadoon does, but Shadoon's also got some really strong teammates. Tubbo and Sylvie are cracked, and Amesy can absolutely pop off. We've seen that before. We saw it in MCC Pride 22. So what do I think this team's weak points are going to be? Honestly, I think this team is very well-rounded, but on the other side of that, it means they're not going to play super highly in some of the games, or in most of the games. This is one of those teams that I think is going to get outcompeted. If BattleBox was in, I would say BattleBox would be a very good game for this team, but it has been absolute ages since BattleBox has been benched. I think the last time BattleBox was benched was like MCC 23. The odds of BattleBox being in rotation for this event is not impossible, but it's still very low. Because if BattleBox is in, that means Survival Games is probably not in. I just noticed what was on Amesy's phone. That is hilarious. The number of times Amesy's used that profile picture, I have not noticed that. Anyway, in 9th place, the Pink Parrots. Alright, my first controversial pick. There are going to be a lot of controversial picks in my predictions. There are so many strong teams in this event, so some of them aren't going to place as highly. That's just a fact. So in 8th place, the Aqua Axolotls. This team consists of Illumina, 5UP, Impulse, and Good Times with Scar. Very strong team under normal circumstances. This is an event where all 10 teams are very, very strong. And I think the other teams that I have ahead of Aqua are stronger. Illumina is arguably one of, if not the best player currently in MCC. 5UP has been popping off. Impulse is relatively new to the event, but is starting to get a lot more experience. And Scar seems to be improving with every event he's in. So what are this team's strengths? This would be a phenomenal Grid Runners team, but I don't think Grid Runners is in. This is a very strong survival games team, probably. Illumina is very good at it. 5UP has done very well. I don't think Impulse has played it. And Scar's... I'm pretty sure Scar has done very well in survival games. But I don't think Scar has played it that much. This would be a crazy BattleBox team, but I don't think that BattleBox is in. So to summarize that, this team would be very strong if the games that I think are going to get benched are in the event. If they do wind up being in the event, this is one of those teams that is probably going to shoot up in my predictions. And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say for this team. They're pretty well-rounded, but again, similar to the pink team, that means they're going to get outcompeted in games that would normally be their good games. And they're going to place pretty average in games that might be their weaker games. So all of that combined puts them probably somewhere around 8th. So the Aqua Axolotls in 8th place. In 7th place, the Cyan Coyotes, consisting of Rambu, Tommy Innit, the Orion Sounds, and CPK. Love their profile pictures, by the way. Keep them. So this is the first and I think only team that doesn't have a set carry. You could argue either CPK or Tommy Innit, or even Rambu, or the Orion Sound. Honestly, all of them could wind up carrying this team. Ollie's coming off the back of a 2nd place event, so watch out. This team is going to absolutely dominate in the PvP games, particularly Sky Battle. Tommy is a beast. CPK's done very well. Rambu's been doing better with each event in Sky Battle. And Ollie is probably one of the most well-rounded players in MCC. If BattleBox is in, then Cyan is going to dominate in BattleBox as well. This reminds me very much of another CPK Rambu team that also had Wisp and Wilbur. I believe that was MCC 22. This is basically that team, but stronger. So BattleBox is definitely going to be a very good game for them if it's in the event. As for weaker games, the team games are probably going to be this team's downfall, as well as maybe some of the movement games. Hole in the Wall is a pretty good game for this team, but I could see this team struggling in Rocket Spleef Rush. Rambu absolutely popped off last event in Rocket Spleef Rush. Tommy's done pretty well. CPK's done really well. Ollie is getting better, but compared to teams like Green or Lime, which have some of the best Rocket Spleef Rush players on them, not sure how this team's going to do in comparison. Even Aqua is a very good Rocket Spleef Rush team. I forgot to mention that. But in 7th place, the Cyan Coyotes. In 6th, And my next controversial pick, I have the Blue Bats, consisting of Kratzy, Fruit Berries, False Symmetry, and Shovel. This is a monster of a survival games team, but I think there are also other teams that are also monsters in survival games, so I'm not sure how well that's going to go for them. This team is the king of PvP. This is probably one of the best PvP teams in the event that also does really well in team games. But this team's downfall is probably the movement games. To get to the other side is probably going to be one of this team's weaker games that they should probably try to skip. Team bonuses are very important, so if they're not able to get the team bonuses, it's going to hurt. Also, Parkour Warrior, while it hasn't really been played much, so there's not much data to go off of, this team probably struggles in that game as well. This is a very good hole-in-the-wall team between Fruit and Shovel. Dave has done pretty well. False has done pretty well in there as well. And Ace Race could go well for them, but I could also see Ace Race completely backfiring on them. So all in all, very strong team in terms of PvP, very strong team games team, but movement is going to be a bit few and far between. Rocket's Spleef Rush could also be a danger for this team. So the Blue Bats in 6th? Yes, Blue Bats in 6th place. Controversial pick number 3. In 5th place, I have the Yellow Yaks, consisting of Goomy, Red Velvet Cake, Ant Frost, and Purpled. Now, this team arguably has the best duo on it, with Purpled and Ant Frost. It's a very specialized PvP team. Movement, similar to the blue team, is going to be difficult for them. Right away, yes, Purpled is very good at Rocket Spleef Rush, but the other 3 tend to struggle. Ace Race is very good for Ant Frost and Purpled, but I don't think Red has played Ace Race that much. And Goomy, it's one of Goomy's weaker games, if I remember correctly. But the scores that you get for placing really high are a lot, so that might save this team. As well, team games can be difficult for this team, but I also don't think there's going to be that many team games in this one, and this team I could see doing very well in Sands of Time. I did say that this team is a very good PvP team, and for Sky Battle, absolutely. For Meltdown, absolutely. For survival games, they should probably avoid it. Survival games is by far Purpled's worst game, and I believe it's also Ant Frost's worst game. So when you have a game where your 2 very strong players can't carry, or not necessarily carry, but can't do well, or have a hard time doing well, that's probably the game that you should avoid. Yes, survival games also gives out a lot of points, so if they have a bad survival games, it's really going to just shoot them in the foot. But in 5th place, the Yellow Yaks. Still a very strong team. In 4th, and controversial pick number 4, I have the Lime Llamas. I am seeing the community absolutely sleep on this team, consisting of Cubfan, Filza, Puns, and Awesome Dude. I do not understand how they are sleeping on this team. Puns is cracked. Filza is cracked. Awesome Dude is cracked. Cubfan is doing so well recently. Cub is having a much better late season 2, early season 3 than they had in season 1. Which I know we don't usually talk about season 1, but in this case I think we should. Cub is one of the more improved players in MCC. And not to mention, Cub is going to round out a lot of this team's weak points, particularly on the team games side of things. This is a monster of a Rocket Spleef Rush team. All 4 of these players can realistically get top 15 in Rocket Spleef Rush, maybe even top 10. Filza is arguably the best Rocket Spleef Rush player right now, Puns is easily a top 10 Rocket Spleef Rush player, and so is Sam. So, Rocket Spleef Rush, if it's in, they probably shouldn't play it as a finale because they're going to need Rocket Spleef Rush in order to place very high. But if they play it like 5th through 7th, somewhere in there, then they're going to get so many points. As well, this is a very good PvP team. Puns is a very good PvPer. Phil's is definitely above average, so is Sam, and Cub has definitely been improving in PvP. Sands of Time is also going to be a very good game for this team. It's Cub Fan's best game. If Cub Fan could take the lead, Sam's very good at it. Phil can do very well when he's on a good team. Normally in Sands of Time, Phil, if it wasn't coin split, Phil would do so well in Sands of Time. But Phil's one of the players that kind of gets screwed over by coin split, especially recently. And then Puns has done well. I'm not 100% sure on how well Puns does, but on a team like this, Puns should do pretty well. Games that I think are going to be this team's weak point. Maybe Ace Race. Don't get me wrong, none of these players are bad at Ace Race. But Ace Race is a very map-dependent game for this team. If it's Yeti Set Go, then Phil's probably going to do very well. Puns probably gets into the top 10. Has Sam ever played Yeti Set Go? Yes, right? I'm not too sure how well Sam did. I know Cub did pretty well. But doing decent or pretty well is not going to be enough to save this team. They're going to have to do very well in Ace Race. Meltdown also is probably going to be a game to avoid for this team, even though Puns is very good at it. So, the Lime Llamas in 4th. In 3rd place, just missing out on Dodgebolt, also controversial pick number 5, is the Green Geckos, consisting of JoJo Solos, Pizza Hut, Michael McChill, and Carr Corvus. I'm seeing this team get immediately put into 1st place. Yes, this team is absolutely capable of getting 1st place. I just think this is one of the teams that's getting a little bit overhyped. We see it in every event. There's always that one team everybody thinks is going to get 1st, and that team, because of it, starts underperforming because everybody's expectations are so high for that team. Realistically speaking, I don't think this team really has a weak point. Maybe Sands of Time, but even that's a stretch because JoJo's very good at it. Pete was very good at it in Season 1. Season 2, still very good, but not as good as Season 1. Not really sure how Michael does. Not really sure how Kara does. Alternatively, I think some of the more team-based movement games could be rough on this team. Games like To Get to the Other Side could be rough. Rocket Spleef Rush, JoJo and Pete are probably both top 5 players, so that's gonna get this team pretty far. Similarly, Hole in the Wall, JoJo and Pete, again, like top 5 players in Hole in the Wall. Michael has done very well in Hole in the Wall in the past, and Kara is pretty good at getting those survival points in Hole in the Wall. Kara usually doesn't go out on the early walls, if I remember right. Ace Race again is going to be map dependent for this team. This team could do really well in Ace Race, but they could get outcompeted. Honestly, I think the games that this team should probably avoid, even though they have JoJo and Pete, are probably the PvP games. Just because I think there are other teams with duos that are much stronger in PvP, particularly Yellow and even Red, which we'll get to in a moment. So yeah, the Green Geckos in 3rd. In 2nd place is the Red Rabbits, consisting of Hannah, Sapnap, Captain Puffy, and Captain Sparkles. We're seeing the Captain duo return again. Very nice. Sapnap and a strong team returning. That's nice. Hannah finally getting a team where they're not the strongest player. That's also very nice. Although I guess Hannah did have a similar team to that in MCC Scuffed, which I'm sorry for not covering, but I was in the middle of midterms, so there was no way that I was going to be able to record that. This team is a PvP monster. Survival games is such a good game for this team. It's Hannah's best game by far, although Hannah's only played it like once, maybe twice. It's one of Sapnap's best games, and with a duo like that, Captain Puffy and Captain Sparkles are going to do really well. Similarly, Sky Battle is a pretty good game for this team. Sapnap's a beast. Hannah's very good. Captain Sparkles is a bit inconsistent in Sky Battle, but has done very well in the past. Similarly, Captain Puffy. Where is this team's weak points? It doesn't really have that many weak points, just because Captain Puffy and Captain Sparkles really help round out this team's weak points, as they're pretty good team games players and they're not that bad in movement games. Oh, we forgot completely to talk about Ace Race. Ace Race is probably this team's best game. It's one of Sapnap's best games. I believe it's Captain Sparkle's best game. Yes, Puffy struggles in it a bit, but Puffy has also done pretty well. And it's also one of Hannah's best games. Some of the movement games like to get to the other side if they get targeted. It might not be a good game for them to go for just because of that. And Hole in the Wall might also be a bit of a thorn in this team's side. But if there was one game that I would say this team should absolutely avoid at all costs is Rocket Spleef Rush. Sapnap is coming off of a pretty rough Rocket Spleef Rush in MCC 26. I don't think Sapnap has done super well in Rocket Spleef Rush. I think it's one of Hannah's weaker games. Captain Sparkles is pretty average at it, and I think it's one of Puffy's weaker games. So that is definitely a game for this team to avoid. But they do make it to Dodgebolt, according to my predictions. So who are they going to be facing? The Purple Pandas, also known as controversial pick number 6, consisting of Solidarity, Fire Breath Man, In the Littlewood, and S Major. So I know what you're thinking. Why do you have this team first? And that's because this team doesn't really have a weak point that I could look at. This team is a very good PvP team. Fire Breath Man absolutely dominates in PvP. S Major pulls his weight. In the Littlewood has done very well, and Solidarity has also done very well. This team is a monster of a team games team, even though I don't think there's going to be that many team games. But this team is also a very consistent movement team. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor in them getting first. They're going to be able to get very consistent placements in pretty much all of the movement games, and it's going to be a pretty high placement as well. I could see this team doing very well in Ace Race. I could see this team doing pretty well in Rocket Spleef Rush. So, yeah, I know I'm leaving out a bunch of movement games. Parkour Warrior could also be a very good game for this team, even though I think most of the players on this team have either never played it or have only played it once. Sky Battle, Fire Breath Man absolutely carries, and for good reason. I mean, MCC Island Sweat, am I right? Or back in the day, he was. I don't know if Fire Breath Man's still a Sky Battle Sweat. I think a game that this team should probably avoid is survival games. They're not going to do that badly in survival games, but this isn't a team that I could see winning survival games against some of the other teams. So yeah, the Purple Panda's in first place. So let me know what you all think in the comments down below. As I said earlier, my predictions will be updated when we get game announcements. But have a lovely day. See ya.